Light and peace, brothers and sisters. The topic of discussion today is words of Confucius. Confucius is a prophet who probably a lot of people would think is a misunderstood prophet, where some people heard his words, read his words, and they couldn't understand it. Um, Confucius happened to be uh, the best way to describe this man at that time is someone who asks questions, and if he doesn't understand it, he just does things on his own accord. I have read the book of Eskra by this wonderful prophet. Um, and I just wanted to share some information or summarize exactly what this man had done during his lifetime. Um, Kayu uh, accomplish the following: combine all books into one. One of the issues that he found out was that they have numerous of books, plenty, too many. And for we humans, what was the gain? You read 47 books just for you to go to heaven. You read over 200 books just for you to accomplish nirvana. So can you accomplish one thing, combine books and, in other words, compress them into one? Back then they had over 400 books, just an estimate, up to 16. You got to read the book of Extra, chapter 31 to 37, to read the full gist, or should I say the full details of what. Number two, he stopped all the nonsense when it comes to religion and spiritual practices, because no one could follow them into details, which is true. Uh, and when I was reading Can You, I almost felt like this is me here. I've read numerous books, and I was like, there gotta be a simple way for us, you know, to attain heaven. Though it's not an easy thing, but when you read all these spiritual books, you be like, wait a minute, I gotta do this. Now, here it is. First, you gotta read all this, you gotta practice all this in on while on earth, while in this world. And then when you reach heaven, you gotta do a lot more. So it didn't make sense. But can you, though he didn't know it was under the inspiration of God, he was able to consolidate and stop all this religion and spiritual practice that wasn't making sense, that humans can not really do. So basically, that's what he accomplished. A wonderful prophet, but it was very rational. And when I was reading uh, the book of Extra, chapter 31 to 37, I said, wow. But then again, perhaps he recorded that he committed some blunders. Few of them was recorded, but some wasn't recorded. But I can see why they say they committed blunder. So I'm going to go to the next slide and explain this. So to which so Kanye was inspired by God, and God spoke through Kanye in such a way that man would not know it, that God was speaking. He was inspired. He inspired. So for he decided to be inspired meant to self-culture. So instead of relying on God and angels as previously. So in other words, what this is really saying is that he wanted to do things on his own account, saying, why do you need God or an angel to tell us what to do and how to do it? We should be able to know it. We should be able to do it. This is basically that's what, Kanye was trying to accomplish. And, miraculously, or I don't want to say miraculously because he was under God's control, he was able to abolish a lot of these books that didn't make sense, the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 5. And here's one. It says, Can you say, behold, man has blocked the road to wisdom. In one place, he has heaped up thousands of books. You see that? Thousands of books of the ancient. In another place, he wastes his time in rites and ceremony. And when you look at all these spiritual books, out of curiosity, they have tons of rites and ceremonies, poems, prayers, too much of them. Can you, like verse 5 says, can behold, man has blocked the road to wisdom. So he didn't see no wisdom in this. In one place, he has heaped up thousands of books of ancient. You know, you, if you really look at today's world, people still go back to the ancient Egypt to try grab ancient books just to make sense of today. And in all those ancient books, in those Egyptian books, um, you got rites and ceremonies that people still practice today, which in reality, when you really tell it, it's useless. You see? So can you accomplish this by, taking all these books out of the equation, saying, hey, look, in order for you to go to heaven, this is what you need in this world right now, in our world, and this will allow you to attain to heaven, period. You see? And when you go to the book of Extras, chapter 33, verse 30, for for the seed I plant is selected not to be planted in this ocean, nor on the moon, nor in a far off country, but to be planted in Chinyanya, which is called China. And in Chinyanya will I plant it. Now, when you look at this, again, he was an Aisu, but the man is saying, look, I could only do this much. Yes, I'm a prophet. Yes, I'm an Aisu, but I can only do much. So I'm not going to focus on the moon, on the ocean. I'm not going to focus in America. I'm not going to focus on Mexico. I'm not going to focus on Africa. I'm just going to focus on China. I'm planting my seed. I'm fixing China, and that's it. You see? So when you look at this, some people might say he was a selfish prophet. This is why I really wanted to talk about Kanyu, Confucius, because this prophet he was phenomenal. But then again, when you look at it, when you look at this book of Eskra, chapter 33, verse 30, you would say this was a selfish prophet. People will call him a selfish prophet, but in reality, he wasn't selfish. He said, look, I I cannot plant my solution or fix the ocean. I cannot fix the moon. I cannot fix any other far off country. I'm fixing China, and that's it. Anybody else, let them go fix, let the angels and prophet go fix the other countries. Okay, I'm focusing on China, you know? So it's amazing when you really look at it, you think this prophet was a selfish man, was a selfish prophet, but he was not. And when you look at the entire globe right now, right? So back then, you had North Gautama, you had South Gautama, you have Arabia, which is today Africa. You have Europa, which of course you know what that is, Vingju. Then the focus is you see you got Japan, but when you really, really, really look at this man only was focusing on Japhet, which is China today. That's it. He want nothing to do with Europa, Ellis, Arabia, South Gautama, North Gautama, Oceania, Japan, Hawaii. He didn't want nothing to do with that. He just wanted to focus. He didn't want nothing to do with Japan. He just wanted to focus on China, and that's it, which is current um, Japhet back then. Today, the current world will be, China. That was it. When you classify or do a conclusion on this prophet, you say it was a selfish prophet. You see, this is why I wanted to analyze Kanyu and bring this issue out. Because when you really read the book of Extra, you think so when you read the book of Extra, chapter 31, verse if you from book when you read the book of Extra, chapter 31 to 37, you clearly see that his focus was more of China. And he wanted to really eradicate a lot of problems. And people would think this was a selfish prophet, right? But he was not. Uh, other prophets, when you look at the other ISUs, they really didn't make such comment here like this. They did not make this comment on Book of Extra, chapter 33, verse 30. So this is where I really look at this word. I was like, wow, this is deep. He actually literally said this. Um, Interesting, but it was a phenomenal prophet, amazing man. He had a lot of knowledge. The way he was thinking, you got to read the Book of Extra just to understand more about this man. Um, and then when you look at the Book of Extra, chapter 33, verse 20 to 21, verse 20, of these different doctrines, you see this? There are 700 kinds in the sacred books, and they all condemn the follower of the others, consigning which to escape the damnation of hell. A man will need to do sacrifice more than 40,000 days every year. This is not possible to any man. You see, so he started dissecting and analyzing all these so-called sacred books. Look at this, verse 20. Of these different doctrines, there are 700 kinds in the second book, and they all condemn the followers of the others, concerning which to escape the damnation of hell, a man will need to sacrifice more than 4,000 days every year. This is not possible to any man. You see this? For they are owing 365 days in a year. So Kanye was doing analysis like, wait a minute, you're giving us this secret book for us to read, for us to follow, in order for us to escape hell. But there are only 365 days in a year. Why are we doing this? So it didn't make sense to Kanye. It didn't make sense to Confucius. He said, you know, we're abolishing this. And he clearly said, this is not possible to any man. Verse 21, nor is it possible for any man to learn all these books. No, 1,000 years would not even suffice. You see that? But in reality, when you look at all these so-called sacred books, all these spiritual books that is supposed to help us, guide us to reach, to go to heaven, man cannot do it. It's impossible. And this will explain why Moses, Zechariah, they just gave people 10 commandments. They gave the people 10 commandments. Just follow this and you'll be okay when you reach heaven. You see, this will explain why all these other prophets just gave 10 commandments, 10 instructions. Say, hey, just follow these 10 commandments. As long as you do this all your life, you'll be okay. Can you come in the book of Extra, chapter 33, in China, of course, saying, my people cannot follow this. We cannot. It's not possible. We're not following this book. We're not following these laws. We're not following this. This is not going to work for us. In the book of Extra, chapter 35, verse 5, this is where he continued, and this is another one where he questioned, he shall torture his flesh by fasting, by lying naked on sharp stones, by flogging nations, and otherwise showing before the gods how displeased he is with his corporeal body. You see that? This is another thing that you have to do just to show God that, hey, you know, uh, uh, I'm, I'm, I'm I, reaching purity. I'm trying to be purified. I'm trying to purify my body. I'm trying to make myself a better person spiritually. This is, I mean, in plain English, to Kanyu, to Confucius back then, this was nonsense. The book of Esther, chapter 35, verse 5, people were doing this. And and you'll be surprised in today's world right now, you see some few people who are still doing this, practicing this. And Kanye was like, this was pure nonsense. Now, when you go to the book of Extra, chapter 36, verse 19, I'm reading from the book of Extra, chapter 36, verse 19. To grieve over one's own self because of imperfection. This is great folly. This is where I'm going. To eat fruit, herbs, and rice. These are the purest diet, but only a fool will rather starve than eat flesh. This this is very questionable because um the 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 ISUs and so on, they are known to eat just fruit, herbs, and rice. They they're the what they want to call the vegans today, they do not eat any animal product. They don't eat animal period. So for can you to say this in verse 9, and when you really look at it, he's trying to say, hey, look, yeah, to eat fruit, herbs, and rice, these are the purest diets, but only a fool would rather starve than rather eat flesh. So what he's really saying here is that, hey, um, when there's no food at all and you ain't got nothing to eat and you're starving, you better take that pork chop, you better take that beef and start eating it. This this is where uh, people begin to question this man, like, hey, this sounds like a blunder. One minute, one minute, the faith's rules and guidelines says, thou shalt not eat any animal, that breath the breath of life. But then can you saying, yeah, hey, you'll be a fool to starve to death than eating that flesh. You better eat that flesh. Anyway, we don't. Rice and ceremony are useful, but a man had better dispense with even this than to go to war for them. You see, my main focus here was to eat fruit, herbs, and rice. These are purest diets. But only a fool will starve rather than eat flesh. So when you really look at this prophet, you'll be like, wait a minute, what is he really saying here? Um, and then when you look at other parts of Oahspe, a fetus will rather die than to eat flesh. Can you saying, hey, look, ain't nothing to eat, you're starving, and you see yourself a pork, a beef, chicken, turkey, you better eat that thing. That's what he's really saying here. Okay. Now this is where it really get complicated with Kanyu, his words. Book of Exodus chapter 36, verse 26. I divorced my wife because I discovered she could not bring forth heirs to believe or faith. No man should be bound to a woman whose desire lie in corporal self, and a woman should have the same privilege. But when you read the OahspeCollegeUniversity carefully, or the faiths, or should I say those are issues, they provided rules and guidelines for monogamic marriage, one man, one woman. So once a man marries a woman, or that woman marries a man, that's it. There's no such thing as divorce. Yes, a little bit twisted, but then again, he's trying to say, you know, because eh, Kanye was questionable here. Verse 26 was really questionable because he knows better. And he put this out here, no man should be bound to a woman whose desire lie in corporal self. So basically, hey, he's really saying divorce your wife and the woman should have the same opportunity. This is a twist. You see, Kanye was questionable here, but I could understand. See, but it was this verse 26 was really one of those complicated one when I was reading it. Now, in book of is chapter 11, verse 30, the book of is chapter 11, verse 30, which enabled God Jehovah to pursue to great plans for the redemption of mortals. These plans were to provide protection to the Kanyans of Chinye, the worshippers of Jehovah, to found the country of Christendom free of bribes of low men. So as soon as God provided sufficient pro protecting hosts of angels for Kanye, he devoted his energies to Guatemala. So yeah, as you can see clearly that in verse 30, the Kenyans were protected. And what happened here was that you still have um some plan. The religion, or should I say the plan he gave to the people of China still worked, because right here, clearly, even God in the book of Isaiah still went to protect the Chaldeans. Because remember, in the book of Isaiah, right here, after the last chapter, which is After chapter 37, the thing jumps to the book of Acts. The man, yeah, was, he was done with his work. But in the book of Acts, which is right after, people started following the Cayens. They started following the Cayen guideline. And you see here clearly that um, that the Cayens were being protected, and they had plans. So it was a good in nutshell, was a good doctrine that they gave to the people of China. Though the Oahspe recorded that he committed some blunders, but that was just some blunders. But you see right here, see Book of Judgment, chapter 3, verse 29. Uh, because later on, the things start getting corrupted, right? So then God in the book of judgment gave a judgment saying, wherever the Canaanites have let people fall from knowledge into ignorance or from virtue into vice, my judgment is against them. What started happening was that those remnants of what Cain did, and it started getting corrupted because they were absolutely recorded that the Confucius had recorded or done some blunders, though he doesn't give what exactly he did. But in the book of Judgment, chapter 3, verse 29, clearly tells you that judgment was now rendered against the Canyans, the follower of Kanyu, saying, wherever Canyans have let people fall from knowledge into ignorance or from virtue into vice, my judgment is against them. And then in the book of Judgment, chapter 36, verse 10, and in the same time, I sent infidels against the Jehovah's Bible. I sent infidels against the Hindu Bibles and against the doctrines of Brahma, Buddha, and Kanyu. You see that? So at one point, Kanyu's doctrine get it got corrupted somehow over time because the foundation was laid okay, but things started getting out of whack because people started taking things out, people started adding in, and and Kanye must have written some stuff down for them to follow that was eventually down the road people start falling out of knowledge from it, and now judgment is now rendered against Kanye's followers. If you follow the Kanye doctrine, um judgment is rendered against you because it got to a point where the thing was no longer potent, was no longer efficient, and it was getting corrupted. So corruption, started afterward because now Kanye is saying, yeah, Kanye is saying, yeah, right here in verse 19, that only a fool will starve rather than to eat flesh. So imagine me following the Kanye doctrine. He's telling me I can eat pork, I can eat, I can eat beef if I'm starving. Anyone will read this wrongly, right? And then he's over here, you could divorce your wife, So it, it got to a point where this was getting complicated. Kanyu was a wonderful prophet, was an amazing prophet, but at one point things started getting, uh, out of whack. He accomplished to stop the religion nonsense, the practices. He was an amazing prophet. I love Kanyu. When I read it, sometimes I think about me. I'm like Kanyu. If I read something, I'm like, yo, I gotta do this. You gotta be kidding me. So like, light and peace, brothers and sisters. The topic of discussion today was just about words of Confucius. He was a wonderful prophet. He laid out a lot of foundation, but at the end of the day, Confucius died. He committed some blunders according to OahspeCollegeUniversity. You can clearly see why judgment is now rendered against the Kenyans because things started getting corrupt. And don't get me wrong, along the line, probably the fallen angels also, got involved with his book. And so judgment is rendered against them, which was clearly stated in the book of Judgment, chapter 3, verse 29, that wherever the Cayens have let people fall from knowledge into ignorance or from virtue into vice, my judgment is rendered against them. And then also, infidels was raised against the corruption in the Kanyu book. You see that? Against the doctrines of Kanyu. So light and peace, brothers and sisters. Bye-bye now.